Hi, this is Anthony Vanderwerth. So, in this Actifio tech tip, I want to talk about mounting as a new VM and how we can do that regardless of whether we've got block data stores, NFS data stores, or VSAN. Because this is a very common question that I get. Will the technology choice I make in terms of my VMware storage affect my ability to use the Actifio appliance? And the short answer is no, it won't. And I want to show you how that is the case. So let's dive into it.
All right, so we want to talk about mounting as new VM and the pathway that we're going to use to do that and what technologies I can work with to achieve that. So you can see here I've logged into Actifio Global Manager or AGM and I've gone to the application manager. If this looks a little different to you, it's a version 10 AGM. I've set a couple of filters where I've said, okay, only show me managed virtual machines, so managed VMs. And you can see I've got a whole bunch of VMs. So what I'm going to do is choose a VM and I'm going to choose the access choice, which says, all right, I want to access an image of one of those virtual machines. So this brings up the access panel, sometimes colloquially called the Guitar Hero panel. And you can see I've got various categories, locations where I've got copies of this VM, and I've got various points in time. So I'm going to grab a particular point in time and I'm going to choose the mount option. Now, the default when we choose the mount option is to mount to an existing host. But in this case, we want to talk about mounting to new virtual machines. So when we mount to a new virtual machine, this look and feel has pretty well always been the case. But I'm going to show a significant difference. So I'm just going to type something here in the VM name, choose my vCenter, and choose my ESX host. So the ESX host is where the VM is going to be created. Now, I can choose map to all ESX hosts, so it will be created on more than one if you like. Well, it's running on one, but it's available on many. But here's the key, it's this data store choice. So first up, why do I need to even choose a data store? And the short answer is, if I choose this one here, we'll get to only one data store. The short answer is that we need a data store to hold the VMX file and to hold the swap file. Now, traditionally, we always mapped the Actifio part of the business, in other words, the data, as virtual raw device mappings or physical raw device mappings from the Actifio appliance to the ESX host and then presented them through to the VM. Now, those choices remain valid right now. Now, you would choose VRDM mainly if you wanted to do a storage vMotion, or what's called a migrate after you've done the mount, or maybe you want to actually start protecting that as a VM, so you want to do VMware snapshots and you want those snapshots to include the Actifio disks. Otherwise, you could do a PRDM. And a PRDM we often do if we want to protect the applications inside it. So, but either way, traditionally we chose VRDM, or in fact, that was the only choice we had. This NFS choice didn't exist. And when we did that, on the Actifio side, obviously we'd get a new VM. So I've created one here previously called RDM Mount. And if we look on the data stores, we can see that it's using only one data store. So again, that question of what are you using the data store for? And we can actually see that really quickly if we go with Browse Files, because what that will show us is within that data store, there are effectively three categories of file. So here we go, RDM Mount. What we can see is there is the VMX file, which I talked about earlier, which is the configuration file. There is, I'm getting carried away here. There is the swap file, which is this guy here. And what I'm unsuccessfully here, we'll try this one more time. There we go. There is a pointer to the RDM. Now, the RDM is 80 gig in size. I mounted this in less than a minute, so we didn't move 80 gig in less than a minute. What happens is we have a pointer in the block data store that's pointing to the RDM that's coming from the Actifio appliance that we're passing through to the VM. So that block data store was needed to hold the VMX file, the swap file, and critically, the pointer to the RDM. RDMs, those pointers can only exist inside block data stores. So this is how we've done it for many, many years. In version 9, we added this option called NFS. NFS changes the game dramatically because with NFS, what we'll do is instead of providing the data as virtual raw device mappings, which we need the pointers for in that block data store, we're going to provide the data instead as an NFS file inside an NFS data store being presented by the Actifio appliance. So again, I've mounted a VM earlier and I called it NFS Mount to make it obvious. And you can see, unlike that RDM mount, this VM has two data stores. Now, one is that same block data store. And again, if we go in there and browse the files, we're going to see something very similar, but with one significant difference, which is, again, I go to the NFS Mount, so that's my VM. we can see we're going to have, let's see if I can get this right the first time. No, keeps tricking me. What I want to show you is that the pointers to the RDM, it's not going to do it for me today. The pointers to the RDM aren't there. We've got the VMX file and we've got the swap file, but what we don't have, is we don't have any pointers to RDMs because we don't need them. The reason being that the RDMs aren't being presented because they are coming from a different data store, which is that NFS Datastore you saw. So the NFS Datastore is being presented from the Actifio appliance. You can see the IP address of the Actifio appliance there at the start. Now, I will show you browse files, but honestly, it's not worth doing because there are many folders in here, and you don't know which one it's currently in. We could actually work it out, but it's unimportant. All we know for sure is that the disks, the data for this virtual this mount, this VMware VM that we've created, are coming out of the NFS Datastore. Now, the reason this is significant is that, as I said, traditionally, this data store would be a block data store, which it would have to be to support RDMs. But if I only have a VSAN, so instead of a block data store, you choose a VSAN, and normally what you'd see looks very similar. You see something in that drop down, but it's usually enormous in comparison to a block data store. If you choose a VSAN, we can still mount as a new VM, provided we use mount mode NFS. Because the VSAN, we can mount to it. We just need to present those disks as NFS rather than block RDMs. Or equally, if I don't even have any block data stores, if these data stores shown here are NFS data stores, I can again mount as a new VM because I will present the data via NFS. So in other words, in the scenario where I'm mounting using VSAN, you'll still see two data stores. One will be your VSAN, the other will be the Actifio NFS. Or if I'm mounting using where all of my data stores are actually NFS data stores, you'll still see two, where this one, instead of being this block data store, will be an NFS data store. Now, one of the things you might notice is when I chose new virtual machine, it actually defaulted to NFS. And the reason it does that is that my vCenter has been told to do it. So if I go to manage, what used to be our classic domain manager, and say manage hosts, you can see I've got my vCenter host here. And the way I got that to appear straight away, I could have actually chosen a filter here, but I'm actually filtering using the word vCenter because I know it's in the name. But if I go and edit this guy, what you'll see in a moment is that there is a thing called a transport mode. The transport mode can be NFS or SAN. So NFS meaning present all the mounts over NFS, or SAN meaning present all the mounts using RDMs as block. So two very easy settings to set there, to set that default depending on what you want, and that will make your life a whole lot easier. So as I said, we've now covered the vSAN, we've covered a customer who's got only NFS, and we can continue using block wherever block is available. Lots of great choices. All right, hopefully that was useful to you. Thanks for listening.